My name is Matt Ayers, and I'm interviewing Mrs. Frankie Brown. We are at 167 Harker Street. Today's date is Thursday, March 10th, 2011. And the time is...
Behind 11:20.
11:20 a.m. Thank you again for having us, Mrs. Brown. We appreciate it.
You're quite welcome.
First and foremost, I'd like to ask, were you born in Mansfield?
No, I wasn't. I was born in Washington, Georgia. I come to Mansfield in 1941. Me and my mom come here on the train. My dad was already here about a year before we was, because to get us, get a job and for us a place to stay. He worked at the steel mill. So when we first come here, we stayed on North Main Street, right by the Dansby Barber Shop. We stayed in an apartment house. And I went to Fronty House when I was kindergarten. I went to Fronty House, and that was on Main Street. The depot was train depot was on Ollie Street then. Then in 1942, my dad bought a house on Lewis Street. 277 Lewis Street is spelled E-W-I-S then. It's spelled L-O-U-I-S now. Back then we had dirt roads. We didn't have no bathroom in the inside. We had to go out to the outhouse to the bathroom. No hot water. We had to heat our water. My mom washed our clothes on the rubbing board. They call it washboard now. We had an ice box, so the Iceman came once a week and sold ice for 50 cents a block. And no TV, had radio. You just listen at Lone Ranger, Amos and Andy, all them old characters back then. I remember when my mom first got a washing machine, got them old with the wringer. You had to be kind of careful when you wring your clothes, because if you wouldn't, your hand go right through with the clothes. So we had houses on both sides going up and down Lewis Street. So I had a lot of, what would I say, kids to play with. We was a lot of kids on the street. So we entertained ourselves, because we didn't have no computers and stuff back then. Like I said, we played marbles, baseball, and we just made up our own games. For us, stores and things, we had on Lewis Street, right below my house, we had it was a bar there owned by Papa Johnny. It was black owned. And on the corner of Lewis was Glad Hand, a restaurant. And then there was another bar down below that. I don't remember the name, but blacks wasn't allowed to go in there then. So on up the street we had Mr. Lumpkin. It was black owned. We used to go there and get our penny candy, milk, and ice cream. He had an ice cream thing. And next to it was a filling station. It was owned by white, but we could go in there and get our car gas and your car fixed. And he was I can't remember his name, but he was very friendly. Then on up further, we had Mr. Smith. It was a hotel-like. That's where when blacks come into town, they go there to stay, because we didn't have any place for blacks to stay back there. Mostly when people come from out of town, they either stay with family or friends. But if you didn't have family friend, you could go to Mr. Smith and he would rent you a room. And then further we had Davis grocery store that was on corner Longview. Up the street was Marshall's. Back then, you got your groceries on credit. You can go in there and get anything you want. Then on Friday, you go up there and pay for what you got. So, like I say, you didn't have to worry about being hungry or anything, because you can always go up there and get you whatever you need, and then pay for it on payday.
Do you remember, were a lot of the grocery stores like that, or just the ones in your neighborhood?
Just the one in our neighborhood was like that, you know. Because when they had, I can't remember that big market on the corner, what was that, 6th Street, you had to pay for it just like you go out to Kroger's and everything, but Marshall's and Davis, they let you get credit, you know. So we got, I don't think, we got credit there until they went out of business, and people started going to the bigger grocery stores and things. But most everybody just trade with them, you know. And then Fox Hardware was up on Harker Street, right across from O.C. Hill, you know. And I went to school at what was called Bowman Street then. It was segregated back then. We had 3 black teachers, Miss Joyce, Miss Carter, and Miss Barnett. You know, usually they was really nice teachers. They really taught you. They took the time and they taught you. You know, beforehand when we got unsegregated, they had so many kids in there. It's kind of hard teaching one-on-one, but they really was good teachers. You know, I think in we played on the playground, but we had to play down at the bottom where y'all park at now. That's where we played at. In the white, they played up at the top, you know. And then like up when Woodworks dime store was uptown, we could not go in there and sit down and eat. We had to, they had a little like a booth on the side, and we had to go over there and get a pop or hot dog, and we had to stand up, eat it, or either going outside, you know. So like I say, it was really segregated back then. And then like we was going to school. Well, in grade school, we all walked to school. We walked and walked back home. It was up in high school, Simpson Senior High, we started riding the bus. And like some had said, when we got on the bus, we had to go to the back. If we couldn't get a seat back in the back, you had to stand till you got to school. But usually most of us, we always walk back home. We all get the bus and then walk back home. They got to give you a little pass, and they click it. And then on during the week, the grown-ups, they had, like my mom and all, when they used to go out and work, they had to go back to the back. You know, either stand up till they got uptown and change to another bus to, go where they want to go. You know, so like I say, it was kind of rough back then. You know.
So were you involved in any activities in school?
Yeah, back then they didn't have too many activities. Mostly, like we go out on the playground and play. Kids play, either ball or either they play hopscotch or either mostly they shoot more boys shot marbles. With the girls, they jump rope and stuff play games like that when we go outside to play.
Did you play any sports or anything like that?
Back then they didn't have no sports. Not in Crabland, they didn't have sports. I don't think when my kids went there, when it was unsegregated, then they had sports. But I can't remember they having too much sports back then.
Okay. What year did you graduate from high school?
I didn't graduate from high school. I didn't finish. I got for the 10th, and that was it. That dropped.
But Tarno, can we backtrack a little bit? I wanted to ask you, I know you kind of mentioned your dad, he worked at the steel mill, but was that the reason your family settled in Mansfield, or was there another reason they came to
No,
Mansfield?
that's the reason my uncle was already here, and he told my dad they was hiring, and he came on up here in 40 and got a job, and worked almost a year before we came up here.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
No, just me.
Just you? Okay.
Uh-huh.
What was family life like? Your family?
My family, it was nice. I got a good upbringing, but for as when you're only child, you don't have two, siblings to play with. But it was a family next door, the Petties, and they had 12 kids. So I was over there most of the time playing, playing with them. The ones that was my age, and But like I say, growing up, it wasn't bad at all. We had like I say, everybody knew everybody. You got chastised by other parents if you're doing something wrong. Then you got chastised when you got home too. But like I said, the streets from Crystal Spring on up to Charles Street, it was family. Just like a family. Like I say, everybody just knew everybody. The kids just all got together in the afternoon, and we play. We do whatever we want to do. Then by dark, when the lights come on, everybody had to be home. So like I said, my upbringing was really good. We didn't have much, but it was good. And then, like I say, everybody helped everybody back then. If somebody run out of something, you can go next door, across, and then they lend it to you, and you give it back when you get your groceries or stuff like that.
I know you mentioned your father worked at the steel mill. Did your mother work anywhere?
My mom did housework. She worked for the Gimbals. That when they was on Main Street. Then she worked for them when they moved up on Mulberry. She mostly did day work in different places. She worked for Rem Allen for years until she got that way she couldn't work anymore.
How did your father? Did he work at the steel mill his entire life?
He worked there until he did pass. So it was, I used to see him, he used to work on that, where they pour iron, and you had to be, that was a really hot job. A lot of times he would come home all burned up with the iron, that splash when it was pouring, when it was flash on him. And he would have burnt marks and everything. One time he got burnt on his leg, and the iron hit his leg, and it was really pretty bad then.
Right. After high school, did you go to college at all?
No.
No.
No, I went. I didn't. I did. My first job was cleaning Dr. Steffman's office, and he was paying. I think it was $1 an hour, and so I worked for him. I didn't really enjoy cleaning very much. Then Miss Brightwell, she got me a part-time job at the Farmers Building running the elevator. So I did elevator at the Farmers Bank and Maxwell's clothing store. When somebody was sick or something, then I go in and fill in. And from there, I finally got a job at it was a little factory down on Spring Mill Street. They used to make pots and pans. So I worked there for about 3 years till they went out of business. It wasn't a bad job. You just had to be careful because you cut the metal, and then you had to kind of round them to make your pots and pans. You wasn't careful, you might get cut. But like I say, it wasn't a bad job, and I think they was paying $1.25 an hour. Then from there I worked at Hartman's. I think it was paid $2, about $2 an hour.
So what is Hartman's?
Hartman Electric down here on Diamond Street. Then finally I got in at Ohio Brass, and they started out at, it was about $3 an hour. I worked there until they went out of business, till they closed down. When I went there, they only had 3 black women's working there, because I didn't even know women worked down there. But when I went down there, it was quite a few white women's working, but wasn't too many black working down there. I think the only thing why they started hiring black, it was because of the government. They had to have blacks in there, you know. So I think I was about the 4th black person that got started down there.
Do you remember what year that was at all?
That was had to be in the 60s somewhere, because I think they went out of business they went out, I think it was in 72, I think. You know, then there I went to, when I left there, I was making about $12 an hour, and that was good money back then. That $12, when you start at, you know, $1, and then you work your way up 2 or 3, $12 looking good. Then when they shut down, I had to go. Well, I did home health work for a while. Then I got on that, a friend of mine, Elizabeth Solomon, got me on that Thermodist. Then I had to drop back down to $4. You know, making $12, then drop down back to $4. It was kind of hard to get adjusted to it, but when you have to, you have to. Then I kept, I worked there at night, and then I did home health care during the daytime, you know. So finally I gave up home health care. When I got in permanently at Thermodist, then I dropped home health care. You know, I did home health care for Bed Central. You know, when they first got started in home health care work.
Now, what did your husband do for a living?
He worked at steel mill.
At the steel mill as well?
Yeah, my dad got him on that steel mill. So he worked there till he retired. You know.
I know you kind of already touched on this, but what was the neighborhood like when you were growing up?
Oh, it was good. Neighborhood, it was really good. You know, like I say, kids, everywhere on all 4 streets, so it was really good. Like I say, only thing we just had to get through, then when it got dark, it's dark. You know, only had a few lights out there, and it's really dark. And then, like I say, when we had to go outside to the bathroom, you had to take a flashlight to go out, to, you know, get to the outhouse and everything. But it was really good. It was really good growing up out there. You know, I don't have no complaints, you know, at all. Because either my kids, they grew up out there on Lewis Street. Yeah, all of them was born out there on Lewis Street.
So do you have any fond memories of all that you'd like to talk about, of the neighborhood?
I think my fondest memory when we all used to get together down at the bottom and we play ball. You know, we played ball. That's, you know, that's where we all gathered. I think that's my fondest memory, is there. Then we used to, a bunch of us used to get together in the evening, and we used to walk out in Hillbilly Heaven. That's going out the Bowman Street almost to end. We used to walk out there and, you know, just look around and come back. Then we used to go over to the steel mill. They had like a pump, spring. We used to get spring water. Sometimes we get jugs and go over there and get water and bring it back, carry it back to the house. That was my fondest memories.
Do you have any, you know, not so great memories you remember at all?
No more than when it was Surrogate, you know, Surrogate coming up in grade school. Then mostly when we used to go uptown and you couldn't drink, you know, you had certain place for you to drink. Then you go into these stores and first time when you go in there, soon you get in the door, they say, "Can I help you?" And then we just got in the door. "How can you help us? Because we ain't looked at nothing." And then after you get in there, they gonna follow you all around, and that's, you know, I didn't like that real very much. Like you gonna steal something. Hey, you got money, but that's back then when you go into the stores and things. And just like we couldn't go skating till Monday nights. Wednesday we could go down to Frankie house and dance. So that's when a lot of us got together then.
So what was life like for African Americans in Mansfield in the 40s and the 50s?
Me coming up, my parents, I think mostly is work. Well, like I said, Mom, she always worked, and they worked. They couldn't get any good jobs. I would say that mostly they either had to do housework, office work. Men's they had a little bit better because they could go into the factories, So mostly job wise, I say.
Did the racial bias affect you in any way growing up?
I think mostly in grade school. After I got to Simpson, it didn't bother me that much because the white kids, most of them was real friendly, and then we know, well, especially the ones out by Hillbilly Heaven, we knew them, and they was friendly, So, like I say, high school it wasn't that bad, And going to traveling for the girls. I don't know about the boys, but I don't think it was. We all stayed to ourselves, We couldn't mix with them too much. Mostly stayed by ourselves, except after they surrogated, you could. Like you have choir and stuff, they all mixed together and sang and stuff, but I didn't have any problems with them, after the end. But then really when they surrogated, I really didn't have that much problem with anybody.
So how did the civil rights movement affect you and affect Mansfield in general?
I think it was hard. I think, to me, it made it better because like then you could go to the movie. You didn't have to sit on the right. You could go in the stores now. You could sit down and get you something to eat. It made it a little better, but it was still surrogated. It was still kind of surrogated, but it wasn't as bad when it was back in the 40s, but it got a little bit better. Mr. Middlebrook, he fought hard to get the school unsurrogated. That's about the only way. He was the one, I think, that got it unsurrogated with Mr. Middlebrook. Then Reverend Keene, he come here and he worked kind of hard, and O.C. Hill, he did quite a bit of work, and there's another man, Reverend Washington, I think, was his name Washington? I can't remember. He helped. They pulled, got a lot of things done for the blacks.
So do you remember any examples of civil rights activities that were going on in Mansfield in the time?
I can't remember of any right now. I'm trying to think. They had a workout one time, but I don't remember what it was about.
Or even more specifically, some of the work that you mentioned, Mr. Middlebrook, O.C. Hill, and these folks.
Mm-hmm.
Anything other? You mentioned them helping to desegregate the schools.
Yeah.
Anything else like that?
Job-wise, Mr. Hill did quite a bit in job-wise for the blacks, and so did Mr. Middlebrook too, and I think Mr. Reverend Washington, it's getting us better jobs.
What about, some folks have told us about I guess it's called redlining. The difficulty that blacks had getting mortgages, getting loans. Any experiences with that kind
I
of thing?
didn't experience that. My dad, when he bought that house out there, it was a German man we call him Hunky Giant. And he owned mostly all of them houses on Lewis Avenue. So my dad really didn't have any problems, getting a house, anything. He didn't mention anything about he having any problem. I know they had problems when blacks wanted to move out a little bit further. They didn't want to sell to them. And they had, they couldn't get a house out there in, what I was going to say, Millsville Road, either out there on Park Avenue was kind of hard then to get blacks to sell to. When I bought this house, German people stayed in it, and my dad, he the one that, got it through his GI Bill, and I didn't have any problem. He got it, and then I paid for it, and we didn't have any problem.
But in terms of like, banks weren't lending though. Like you couldn't go to a bank and get a loan to buy a house. Do you have any experience like that?
I didn't have that because Mr. Miller Brooks, he was a real estater, and I got this house through Mr. Miller Brooks. He the one that did all the paperwork and everything. And first, I don't know who, I think my dad bought straight out from Hunky Giant. They figure back and forth.
Right. There was no bank involved.
No, there wasn't no bank involved then.
So, to sort of follow up, that like you mentioned out on Park Avenue, was it just people's reluctance to sell to a black family, or?
I think it was reluctant to sell to black, but they didn't want them in the neighborhood.
Okay.
I put it that way.
Okay.
That's okay. Most of the houses out, anything, they didn't want blacks in the neighborhood, and it's still like that now. You go way out, Ontario, way on out that way. They don't want to sell. A lot of them don't want to sell to blacks, Yeah. But if the black really push it, they have to end up selling. But 9 out of 10 is their house. They sell to who they want to, So that's still, it's certain place a black can buy now, I think.
Now, your neighborhood growing up though was pretty well mixed, or was it?
Out there growing up, it was mixed. It's mostly German. Had a couple of white people stay way up on Lewis Street. When I moved here, it's mostly German. Mostly German on these houses. A few white on property on this street.
I heard you mention your father helped you get this house with the GI Bill. Was he a serviceman?
Yeah, he
there?
was in the service.
What branch was he in?
Don't ask me that. I don't know. He was back when it was segregated.
Okay.
Back then. Because I know he was, saying how hard they had when they went into service, how they was treated, and everything. They couldn't, certain place they had to, certain place they could eat, and just like places they go, you got to go in. Well, here you go to certain place, you got to go in the back door. Especially musicians and things, they had to go to the back door. You couldn't go to the front door. Even a lot of time when you was working, housework and stuff, you had to go in through the back door. You couldn't go into the front, and everything. I can get that information on, I'm going to say service. I can get you information later on that. But yeah, he was in the service.
Was it the World War II era that he was in?
World War II.
World War II, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so do you go to church? Would you tell us a little bit about your church?
I go to Mount Calvary Baptist Church. I've been there ever since I come to Mansfield. The church was up on top of the hill. you know. And I mean, really up on top of the hill. It had them steep steps you got to get up there before you get to the church. Um, it was, I think, I can't remember who was, I don't know if Reverend Tig was pastor then, not, but church was good. You know, Mount Calvary's one of the first black church. It was in Mansfield. And then something like Shiloh and Providence, a lot of church, they branched off from Mount Calvary. You know, I know St. John, they branched off, you know, from Mount Calvary. But we had everybody in church, everybody knew. We had good Sunday school teachers. We had choir practice, you know, junior choir. We had guild, you know, a children's guild. Like I say, you go to church 3 times, you know, all day on Sundays. Start out in Sunday school. Usually after Sunday school, we used to go down to Busy Bee. He was on Main Street. Go down there and grab us a pop or a sandwich and candy mostly, and go on back to church. And then we have morning service. Then most of the time you got to go back evening, and then you got to go back to night service. You know, because I used to tell Mom, I said, when I grow up, I don't think I'll be going to all these service. I said, I make Sunday school, but a special program, but night service, that's just too, just too much. It's just the whole day just, gone.
Some of the other ladies, they talked about going churching. Did you ever do that? Did you go visit any of the other churches?
Yeah, we visited other churches. Mostly, I think we visited Mount Hermon. And then we went to a lot of churches out of town. We used to go. They'll invite you, and then we'll go to their church. Then we have different churches that come to our church, you know. So, like I say, Sunday was nothing but the whole day of going to church, you know.
Can you tell us a little bit about the guild? Everyone's mentioned that, and I've
Guild.
yeah. What is that all about?
A guild is mostly young ladies. They teach them about the Bible. They teach them elegant. You know. They just teach them a lot of things, and then they'll go. They may have once a year. They have like a convention, and you go there and you study different. They have classes like, and you go to different whatever class you want to go to. You go to that. It was a very interesting. Very interesting. You learn quite a bit when you go to the convention and everything. But Guild is just like I wouldn't say just learning the Bible, learning how to do different things.
So while the ladies were doing that, what were the young men doing? Was there a counterpart for the young men?
Yeah, some of the most of these young men, they didn't. Some of them, they had a group. You know, when we go, they had for the young men's, and then they had for the women's. So they got in, and most of the young men, they sung in the choir. Well, the choir was mixed, girls and boys, so it was mixed. You know, 'cause just like now, we got at our church, we got a nurses guild, and they help. Like somebody might get sick in church, they help them. They see if they need to. If they like maybe having heart problems, then they'll call the ambulance and make them comfortable until the ambulance get there. They check just like somebody got diabetes, and then you make sure that have the ate or did not eat, and then you kind of help them get back stabilized.
So could you tell us about the role of the church in your community?
The rules,
The role of it, excuse me.
the role.
Yeah, the role of your church in the community.
The role. How do you mean role?
Just what part the church plays in the community.
Oh, what part the church plays in the community? I would say helping others, give them a good education about the Bible, making sure that everybody, how would I say this? Like Sunday school, they have Sunday school classes from young age up to adult age. Just being helpful to each person, to each other, making them grow together, I would say.
Is there anything else you would like to add that we haven't covered at all?
I can't think of anything right now. I probably think a whole lot of things after you're gone.
Oh, well, please let us know. We'd be more willing to come back. So.
Well, I had a question. I just wanted to know, like, what year was it segregated? I heard you mention, you said you went to school and it was segregated. Around what year was that?
That was in 41. Yeah. We have 42. We have 41. Well, they started before I started, so I started in 42 going up there. So it was segregated then. And like I said, you had only 3 black teachers to teach from 1 to 6th grade. I think Miss George, she taught, I think, from 1 to the 3rd grade. I think Miss Barnett had 4 and 5. Miss Carter had the 6th grade. She just had the 6th grade she taught.
Do you remember what year they desegregated it all? Were you?
I think it was in 48, between 48 and 49, somewhere along in there. They desegregated then. I think you probably can find out, I'm sure, from the library. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that we've covered all of our questions. So,
Okay.
All right. Thank you again for participating. We definitely
you're
appreciate you
quite
having
welcome,
us
and
into your home.
Thank you for coming. And I hope I was kind of helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of nervous.
That's all right.
Mine went blank a couple times.
So I said, if you remember anything else, just let us know. We'd be more than willing to come back.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
I know one thing we always, I know you heard people talking about the risk theater, about when we was going to risk theater, we had to sit on the right, but most of them didn't tell you gotta be careful because you had rats and things running around in the theater. Usually you go there, you got your foot up off the floor like.
Oh, wow.
We laugh about that now.
That actually reminded me of another question. Was there any place that you guys would go to see like live music?
Only time we got to see live music, well, I didn't. Well, after I got grown, the Blue Note used to bring in entertainers. There's a place called the Picket Fence. They used to have, you could go up there and dance and all. Now, Brightwell, Dorothy Brightwell, her husband, he had a bar down on the corner of Bowman Street. You could go down there and get entertainment. Fuzz, a lot of times people have bands to come in, and they'll come in and play. I forgot to mention, back in the 50s, the Wilhikes, they opened a bar there, and then his wife, she opened up right next to it, opened up a beauty shop. You know, but usually, only time we got live entertainment, it was when somebody brought somebody in, and you go down there and listen to them play. Mostly back then, we had a Negro softball team that used to bring a lot of people together. Then right there on Cyclops, back in the 50s, they had a black team that play ball. They play from, back then they didn't have Cyclops. They used to go to Taffin Field and Liberty Park and play softball. Then they built Cyclops, and then they started playing ball at all three places. And that used to be something to give us to go to in entertainment. And then after, like once a year, they have a tournament, and they get black ball players from all over, and they have it for the whole weekend. You know, then they usually have a band dance and something like that on a Saturday night.
Okay. So those were local, like there was a local team that would play, and then they would bring in other folks?
Yeah.
That's how it was, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say they brought in musicians, was it like national artists? I think I saw something where like Ray Charles played in Mansfield at one
Ray
point,
Charles
or...
played in Mansfield one time. I think B.B. King played in Mansfield at one time. He's another blues singer, played here one time, but I can't remember who it was. But it very seldom we would get entertainers to come, but every now and then when you get them, they rent CIO Hall, and we'll go down there. But we had quite a few magicians from out of town used to come down to CIO Hall. Trying to think that Bobby Blue Band come here one time. I think he did.
Now, what is this hall you're referring to? What is that called?
CIO Hall.
Is it Seattle Hall?
CIO.
CIO, okay.
Right down there on by the Westinghouse. It's still down there.
Huh.
It's closed up.
I see.
It's where they used to play. They play bingo.
Okay, it's like is it 777?
It's 7711 now.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was
that was the CIO hall.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, I'd never heard of it referred to that. That's what I. Okay.
Yeah, that's where they used to have all the entertainers come.
I see. Interesting.
To play at.
Okay.
That's what it's called back then. You know, then they changed the name.
Gotcha.
Mostly our entertainer was the entertainer, like my dad, he always went down to the pool room, and they played pool and everything, and like I said, the chocolate bar was there, the Blue Note was there, and they used to go and picket fences around on Diamond Street. People used to go there and jukebox then.
Okay.
You know.
Great. Well, I think that's all we have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you very much
Thank
again.
you.
Yeah, we very
welcome.
much appreciate it.